My backlog of games is massive, so I wanted to just work my way through games that I have lying around and either haven't finished or never started. So for today's video, it's a game called Quantum Error, which I found in the used section at a GameStop for about 20 bucks. I didn't actually wind up buying it, I just remembered it and wrote it down to maybe play it some other time. And then my birthday rolled around and I asked one of my many siblings to get it for me. So here we are. I didn't actually bother playing it until this June of 2025. I just thought it kind of looked cool. It's got a fireman on the cover and he's got a gun. And the back of the box made it sound like a really cool action shooter game. I really wasn't sure what to expect from it. So to start with, there's a lot of cutscenes in this game, and you're going to notice that right away. The first thing we see is some guy grabbing a thing, and then he disappears, and then 22 years pass, and then you play through some terrorist incursion, after which another 10 years pass. There's a lot of time skips in this game.
10 years it's been.
The terrorists are opposing something called Argus, which turns people's irises yellow and is injected into their body via something called nanodust.
I can see that yellow shimmer in all of your eyes. You're all nothing but puppets. Puppets for the family.
The way I understand it, it's kind of like the Collective from Atomic Heart, where it links people's minds together or something. There's not a lot of great explanation of what's going on in this game's story. Your character you're playing as during the terrorist thing becomes a firefighter later, and he and his crew are called into an off-site facility to take care of some sort of explosion, and lots of freaky things happen. And that's about as far as I got. There's a lot of weird abstract visuals, and they don't seem to serve any purpose. If they do serve a purpose, I didn't get far enough to find out. I only made it about 6 hours into the game. As I mentioned, there is a lot of cutscenes. Some of them are almost 10 minutes long. And they do the Metal Gear Solid thing where they name the voice actors next to the characters as they're introduced. In fact, two characters are introduced in the same cutscene, both voiced by Yang Ye? I don't know how you pronounce that guy's name, and I don't really care.
We're starving dogs running the rail lines, just getting by on any scraps we can find.
Your guy's name is Jacob, by the way. I should probably get that out there, but it doesn't really matter. I didn't really find any of the characters worth latching onto. Except for this one. You can skip cutscenes unless it's one of those cutscenes that's supposed to like fade into the back of your guy's head and transition into gameplay, in which case if you try to skip it, it just restarts the cutscene over and over and over again. So you have to let those ones play out.
Puny fireman wants to fight. Let's. Puny fireman wants to fight. Let's fight.
If the title didn't give it away, I didn't get the best impression of the game from the 6 hours of it that I played. So when we're finally actually in the gameplay, and past that opening shooting section, which wasn't great, contrary to what the cover insinuates, it feels more like a horror game than anything. You can alternate between first and third person at any time, and it feels like it's meant to be played in first person. But third person feels okay, although it does have a lot of problems. If you play in third person, the game will always default back to first person when you load your file or after a cutscene. And sometimes the camera will freak out when interacting with certain environmental objects. You also can't shoot without aiming in third person, which severely handicaps your ability to fight enemies. I was hoping the third person would play a little better because the guns don't look particularly cool, and I would have preferred the increase in situational awareness that the third person would have provided. You also move incredibly slowly. Your main character is a firefighter, so he wears about 50 pounds of turnout gear. So the slow movement is justifiable, but this is really, really slow. If you aren't, quote-unquote, sprinting, you are walking with no in-between. you will notice right away that the responsiveness of the controls is really shaky. You can't alternate between prone, crouch, or standing positions while you're in motion. You have to come to a complete stop for that to work. The sprint button and switch shoulder button are both L3, so sprint only works while in motion, and switch shoulder only works while you're at a complete standstill. The checkpoint placement in this game is abysmal. It feels like you can go up to 10 minutes without a checkpoint. It never feels like there's any clear direction on where to go next, so you could just spend 20, 30 minutes running around and then die and wind up back where you were. One place where the game lives up to its cover is in the firefighting mechanics, which are actually really fleshed out. You use actual equipment like the Jaws of Life and a Halligan, and you even have to perform CPR sometimes, even though it is just a QuickTime event. The game actually asks you to blow into the microphone, but I found that that didn't really work properly, so they just give you an option to press a button instead. You also have to drag bodies out of burning rooms, although they turn into boneless ragdolls the moment you grab them, and you can't look behind you, so you wind up flailing them all over the place just to see where you're going. There's some really half-assed crouch stealth mechanics. I couldn't get them to work once. The enemies spotted me every time. It wasn't even worth bothering. It's easier to just get spotted and wait around a corner until enemies walk in front of you and bash them to death. You can tell from the footage the AI is not good. Enemies just sort of walk right at you. Human soldiers do a little bit more moving back and forth, and some enemies can survive having their legs blown off and will crawl at you. I really want to drive home that this game has possibly the worst map system I have ever seen in a video game. There is no mini-map, and there's no pause menu map. The only maps are found at fixed locations in the environment, which would be fine if they had sufficient information, except they do a very poor job of explaining where you're supposed to go, and all the corridors look exactly the same. Immediately after the first boss fight, there's a point where if you look at a map, the objective marker tells you to go to the south, when in fact it actually wants you to go to the elevator to the north. I'm pretty sure at least 2 of the 6 hours I actually spent playing this game was just spent wandering around identical hallways trying to figure out where the hell I was supposed to go next. There's also a quirk to the shooting in this game, particularly when you're in third person, where as long as an enemy is in your reticle, you can shoot them straight through solid objects. I've played games that do this before, and it's usually games like this where there's clearly some sort of budget limitation going on. One thing that got annoying really quickly is that when you die, enemies respawn, even in areas you cleared out. For some reason, the checkpoints don't keep track of the enemies you've beaten. So if you try to backtrack or see if you missed something, all the enemies are going to be back. And this isn't a Souls-like. The game remembers the resources that you expended getting to where you are, so you're just screwed. As I mentioned before, I did get to fight one boss, and it was not great. He just kind of runs at you and tries to punch you, and when he's not doing that, he's setting the entire room on fire. You're just running around the room trying to get oxygen tanks so you don't choke to death on the poison gas he's spreading all over the place. As I approached the point where I stopped playing, the game started introducing invisible enemies. You can kind of make out their outline a little bit, and if you shoot them, there's like an electrical shock effect, and then they just disappear, but they can still somehow hit you, and you can't see them at all. So that was just another frustration thrown on top of everything else. At one point I had to rescue a guy from a room before he was gassed to death with a 2-minute time limit to find the key, which I failed, but all that resulted in was me having to do CPR on him, and he was just walking around in the next cutscene just fine.
Defibrillator gloves charged. Please administer shock. Good job, Jacob. The patient is stable.
One of the rare, interesting elements of the game's environment was the Argus sphere, which had the voice of the AI that controls this nanodust that turns people's eyes gold, and being in its presence meant that I couldn't fire a gun. Because in the context of the game, the guns are kind of like Chronicles of Riddick, where they're ID locked or DNA locked, and you can't fire them if your DNA isn't registered. Although for some reason our character has his DNA registered just by grabbing the gun in some guy's hand, it's very it's very hand waved away. So after giving that guy CPR, he was suddenly following me around. And this is the point where I got sick of the game. After all of this other shit, we get to a point where we have to protect this guy from several waves of enemies where you're given 20 seconds to stock up on ammo and health in between waves. Except, like I mentioned, your character moves incredibly slow. The buttons to open the menu and equip your gear are also hit or miss, and the only way to open ammo and health crates is with your Halligan. You can't just open them with a button. You have to use a specific item. It's insane. So yeah, that was my experience with the first 6 hours of Quantum Error. The Firefighter stuff really had me interested. It didn't come into play as often as you would think. Most of it was just walking down gray corridors and shooting zombies that have like purple lines on them. So this one is going back in the backlog for now. It's going to sit there on my shelf, calling to me like the Green Goblin mask, and I'm sure I will play it again in the future because I cannot let it lie, but I just did not have the patience for it at this time. I definitely do not recommend buying it or playing it in any capacity when it is not being boring or confusing. It is being frustrating. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Are you, for some reason, interested in playing this game? And if so, please tell me why. I would love to hear your reasoning. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.
When you work in these kinds of fields of science, let's just say I've seen stranger things.